Hi. I did make a video on papers, different papers, and a good, I consider someone a good friend if they give me some really good advice. And Cheryl put a message on my paper video that I went too fast. And I think what was happening was I was having asthma problems, and so I was nervous. I was very nervous, and I went a little too fast. So I'm going to remake that. Hopefully I don't have to take that one down, but this will kind of add to it. And so I'm going to actually start with chipboard. And chipboard is a very heavy paper, and it's about 1 millimeter thick this way. With chipboard, there are lots of things you do with chipboard, and it is a very sturdy piece of paper product. When you try to fold it, it doesn't fold very far, which means that it gives things a little bit more stability. If you fold it too far, if you push it too far, it will crack. And so that's the one thing about chipboard. So I get it, usually I get it, I have some 12 by 12s, but I usually get it in 11 by 8.5. I get it on Amazon, and I generally get the 57 point, which that makes it heavy enough for everything that I'm trying to make. And so I'll show you a few examples of the things that I've made with it. For example, here's a book, and you can see the spine and the covers are very heavy. They don't fold. And then I've gone ahead and just used cardboard or cardstock for inside for my pages. But also what's nice about chipboard is excuse me, this is on feet. I have this, it's up off the ground when it's sitting. It's up off the ground, but it won't give. When you put your books inside of it, it doesn't really give. And so I've made a backdrop for it. So it is very stable and sturdy chipboard. I've also made things like this box. This is a 6-sided box. It's on our website. And you can see it's very sturdy. You could put a lot of things in this, and then we have decorated it. This is a different kind of paper, and we'll talk about this later. But for now, the chipboard is just, it's something that you really want to invest in. And this is a garden box that I've made. The entire box is made out of chipboard. And there are some journals in here that I've made. Those are all made with chipboard. And you can see it's just really sturdy. This is another journal. These are actually little matchboxes, they call them, and this is made out of cardstock. So make sure that when you're getting chipboard, there are several weights. There's a lightweight, which is about a 30 point. There's a medium weight, which was 50 to 57 point. And then there's a heavyweight, which is about 80. You don't really need the heavyweight for a lot of the things that we make here. The light chipboard, it will bend more. So if you're going to make, for example, a suitcase that has a rounded top, you'll want to use the lighter chipboard for that. But for things that you want some sturdiness to, books and pieces of quote-unquote furniture, you'll want to go ahead and use a 57 point. Isn't that cute? That's from when I was teaching, and we were using, I had to keep that for memories. Sorry. Okay, so when you're cutting chipboard, there are 2 ways you can cut chipboard. I have the Tim Holtz guillotine, and I've taken off the finger guards because I didn't like them. As a teacher, I was very careful. We had one that was just cut and you go. You didn't have all this fancy schmancy stuff. And so I took these off because I didn't like them. I couldn't control where my chipboard was held or getting it very straight. So I have this guillotine. There are other guillotines. My blade is getting dull, and so someday I'm going to have to replace this, and I have seen other ones that are self-sharpening, so that's kind of a nice thought for me. The other way that you can do this is, let me move my pictures and things, sorry, is with a self-healing mat. This is one of the larger ones. It's about 18 inches by, actually it's 24 by 18. Sorry, yeah, 18 by 24. It's a large one. I used to use it when I was, well, actually, I have one for when I'm doing quilts, and it has a nice little ironing board on the back that you can turn it over. But if you're going to use your self-healing mat, you will need to have one of these, and this one's from Fiskars. It's a rotary cutter, and this actually is really great if you're using this. The one thing I do use a lot is my quilt ruler. And the reason I like the quilt ruler is you can see through it, so that when you're lining things up, here, let me get a piece of chipboard. When you're lining things up, it's very easy to line, and you'll see me, it takes me a while to get everything lined up, but I check to make sure this is lined up and this is lined up so that I get a nice square. And I also do this when I'm doing the guillotine, because then I'll mark it with a pencil, take it to my guillotine, and line up these on my cutting area. So these are some nice tools to have for chipboard work. And my mat, my protective mat, is really dirty because I use it a lot. Okay, so I want to go through some papers. First of all, let's go through, sorry, I have things laid out. Okay, let's start with this one. It was on the top. I do coloring to put into my journals, and so, and just for lots of reasons, but I use a different paper for coloring than I do for cardstock that I'm making books with. And this is a Neenah cardstock. It is 67 pounds, and it's 140 grams squared meter, GM2, you can find it, or GSM. So the reason that you want to know about the GSM or the GM squared is you can find a 67 pound like this that is 147 GSM, 165, 175. The tighter the GSM, the better quality paper you're going to get for something such as printing papers to put on if you do digital. If you don't do digital, you don't have to worry about all of this. This is nice because the Neenah has a little bit of what we call a tooth to it. So when you're coloring with colored pencils, the tooth helps the color to go on a lot smoother. Otherwise, sometimes your colors will come off like they're plastic and they don't hold as well. They don't color as well. They don't hold down as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about with paper is when we're making our signatures. Oh, I don't have that finished. Oh, well. When you're making a signature, you will use something very light. And I have two papers that I have used for signatures. And what you can see about signatures is they're very, very bendable. They're even more bendable than cardstock. So this is a little bit heavier than the paper that you use for in your printer when you're making just business copies. And this is one that I would use. It's not terribly heavy. It's a 20 pound 75 GSM. It's just a true red multi-purpose. It's fairly economical. But my favorite for doing the signatures is the HP Premium 32, which means this is 32 pound. And it has a GSM of 120, which when you look at this, that's quite a bit of difference between the two of these. And this is a nice shiny paper. I don't think you can see it from there, but it's really smooth. So it takes signature papers really well when you're printing them, or even if you just make signatures for in your book that you want to write on. This is my choice, the Premium 32 pound for signatures. Okay, let's put those aside. I like this little book. We did this as one of our Halloween projects for this month. Yeah, October, sorry, October. the other thing that we do is I buy a lot of digital pictures and I print a lot of my own pictures. So the pictures that I print, the paper that I use to print these pictures, and you can see this is all printed paper. It's all on cardstock. All of this. These were made with nothing more than cardstock. They're a little heavier. They're not chipboard, but they're cardstock. And there's 3 pieces of cardstock in here. So there's a black in the middle, and then there's a colored on each side. So it's very, very, very nice. It's very thick. It's also nice for making your, what do they call these? Waterfalls. Yeah. This one doesn't flip, but you can put pictures in this. It's just a little bit more sturdy than the one we use for regular signatures. So I'm going to put that back. And let me show you the paper that we use for these sorts of printing. Lots of different papers. Now, first of all, when I do a base, for example, I was showing you this. This has black in the middle, and then it has the colored pictures that I've also printed. I will use this sort of black for the base. Now, it's actually, we get this from Michaels. It's called Recollections, and it's a very nice paper for doing a base like that, the foundation for colored papers. It is a 65-pound 176 GSM. What I have found with this, I have also bought some white, and I do not care for using the white as much. I've used it, and I have to piddle with it too much, and I'll tell you about that later. But the black, it's a cheaper choice if you're just making something that is going to have other pretty pictures on top of it. This is a really good choice, and you can get it at Michaels. Michaels has this. Now, the reason I don't like the white, and I buy a different one, let me show you that later, is when you print on this Recollections, and I have a nice cutter. It's the All-in-One Works tool, but I don't know if you can see this. Every time I cut, I get these little pieces of, they almost look like cotton. They've fallen off of my paper, and it does this every time I cut, so I don't use the white terribly much. If I use the white and I get it that it has made, it gets really rough, and you can see the pieces, they're hanging off the side. I have this, it's a sandpaper. You can get them at Michael's, you can get them just about any craft store, you can get them on Amazon. But what I'll do is I'll very lightly, I hold one finger under the edge, and I'll very lightly rub across that until those little hangers, they're Klingons, I guess you call them, fall off. And this does a nice job with this paper. I've used this for other things too, but if you do buy the cheaper paper, remember you're going to have some Klingons, lots of them, when you cut. Okay, let's put that away, and let me show you what I really do like to use for my decorative papers. This is not the top of the line by any stretch. It is a medium of the road kind of paper. It's from Joann's Fabric, and it's one of the ones that I have really enjoyed working with. I have found that this does just a very good job for doing decorative papers. It's a let's see, it's a 65 pound, no, this is, oh, sorry. This is 110 pounds, so they do have a 65 pound. Remember to check out the 65 pound. And this I use for something else, but the one that I buy for decorative paper is a 65 pound, and it works like a dream. It's just like butter to cut. It's like butter to work. It prints nicely on your printer. It does all kind of neat, pretty things. Some of the other things I get are, I don't print these, I actually buy the glitter papers, and glitter papers, they usually come from Reflections. Excuse me. A few of the projects that we've made, and this one is from Scrap Queen on YouTube. She showed us how to make this, and it is basically just made with cardstock. Let me show you, this is just so stinking cool. It's an explosion box, and every one opens up, and as you take them out, for example, this one you can put a lid on and then explode another one. It's just really kind of cute, but all it's made of, there's no chipboard involved in this. It is basically just cardstock. So let me put this back together and I will show you the paper that I have used for that. And there's a lot to this. It was so much fun. It took quite a while to do. The paper that I use for that is a very heavy cardstock. This is also, it's an 80-pound, 216. It's accent opaque. And it is a lot heavier than just a plain old cardstock that I used to make the pretty digital prints. This is really nice if you need just a little bit of heft, but you don't need cardstock. And see, again, once I have the base, and then I have a fancy color in here that I've printed, and a fancy paper color that I've printed here. So it gets fairly stable. It's not like it's going to fall apart. It's very stable. It's not quite as stable as chipboard, though. So let's see. I think that's about all I have to show you for now. The last one that I really wanted to show you were this. I do flowers from Heartfelt Creations, and she uses 100-pound, and it's got a little bit of a bite to it. But we make this, let me see if I can grab, sorry, I didn't have it all laid out. She has stamps and dies, and then she has a mold. But these are the dies, and you can cut out, first of all, you stamp them with the stamps. You color them, paint them, however you want them. Then you'll cut them with the die, and I have a big shot. I have the large, super big shot, the great big one. And then you will take those and lay them inside the mold. And this is really fun for anybody that wants to make their projects just a little bit prettier. This is the mold that you will actually, once you've cut those pictures out with dye, you lay them in here, spritz them with a little bit of water, put them in your big shot, roll them through, and they actually come out formed. So they make a really nice, she has leaves, they make a really nice finish to some of your projects. So that paper I actually buy from Heartfelt Creations. I think that's all I wanted to show you. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm hoping that this has been helpful, that I've slowed down just a little bit so that you can catch things. I appreciate your help, your comments, and hope I see you again. Bye.